Welcome to season 2 of LAB Talk Life After Basketball, episode 2. We have a Youngstown, Ohio native, killer crossover, Michigan State alum. Welcome to the show, Courtney Davidson.
I appreciate you having me. I'm glad to be here.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. We appreciate you taking this time out with us. Um, the pandemic is still going on. 2020 and quarantine was like a life changer, a tough year. Overall with that and social injustice. What were some takeaways that you took from that year and during that time?
Oh man, a lot of self examining, I would say, a lot of downtime. It's funny because it was such a rough moment, but there was a lot of blessings in disguise in it. That was actually the first time I'd spent probably about 2, 3 months with my parents since probably high school. So,
Mm,
you go away to college and then you get in your profession and you move. And so that downtime and being able to, really spend time with my family was probably really, really big for me and really helped me appreciate just the moment
mm,
within just having the pandemic and all that entailed. But I'd say just slowing down really was something I hadn't done in a
mm.
while and years. And so I think that was the biggest lesson is to slow down and really appreciate what's important.
I agree. I agree. That college life, hooping, then you were a coach and then you're always on the go. So I agree, like quarantining. And I wouldn't mind doing another quarantine myself because I feel like life is just like this. But you're right, like having that time to just slow down and really assess like what things are really important. That's a huge, huge takeaway from 2020 for sure. So currently, your life after ball, your situation is you're coaching at Loyola University of Maryland, as one of the assistant coaches and the recruiting coordinator. And you've been coaching for several years now. So, what are some newfound successes and maybe challenges, coaching during this time?
Oh well, I mean, coaching period just presents a new challenge every day. I think that's kind of the beauty of the game, and why we played it is it's
Yeah.
never the same. It's always a challenge. There's always something to get better at, and so it's just the same. Just trying to get better, trying to learn how to adapt in the pandemic. It was a rough year. We couldn't have visits, a lot of Zooms, those things which got old pretty quick for recruiting. You're asking kids to sit there and listen to a presentation for an hour, but you have to get creative and to show and display your university. So I think the coaching is the same as playing. It's never ending. It's always evolving, and you just got to stay on top of things. So
Mm.
one day at a time. I don't think I'll ever be done learning and mastering this game in this profession. It's literally you got to be a lifelong learner and a sponge every day.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to say recruiting coordinator is a huge position, on the staff. So I was going to ask like what all that entailed during the pandemic. And you said like trying to come up with creative ways to, keep these kids, interested.
Yeah,
Like that must be tough.
even showing off your campus, it's like you couldn't get them onto campus, so now you have to do the campus tours that are on our school websites. You have to literally just really get creative with how you want to present. We watched film. Kids were playing still, so we were trying to watch the games and log in, and sometimes the scores would be wrong, and but
Oh,
really just trying to do anything and everything to display your university, to sell it in a way
mhm,
that nobody was used to. And so really it was about being creative and building relationships. Honestly, I think that was a big plus of recruiting in the pandemic, is because before we would go pull up in gyms and we'd be like, okay, you can play. And
yeah.
then you start to get to know them a little bit. But it was kind of the opposite. Like you would hear about a kid, you would get on the phones and try to get to know them without being able to go see them in a gym. So you had to build a relationship off the court and trust that, okay, when I do get to see them in person, that they'll be,
Mm,
able to compete at this level. And so I think that was kind of like a difference, because we were
mm,
used to going to see a kid even in July and be like, okay, they can play. Now let's dive into who they are.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit of opposite. You kind of got to know them, and then this past summer we could see them live. Some of the kids that I had been talking to for over a year finally got to see them this past July. So that was a little bit of a difference with recruiting in the pandemic. So
Yeah, I think that's great too, because you you want to build a relationship with these kids. You're gonna see them for 4 years. Your their parents are trusting you, to take care of them, while they're in your hands. So building those relationships with them and the parents is something that's definitely needed. And prior to the pandemic was kind of, I'm not gonna say it wasn't existent, but it was like, let me
yeah,
see what you can do for us first, and then I'll get to know you, kind of thing. So that's what's up. So we're gonna take it back, a little bit, way back to the youth days. Talk to us about what it was like growing up in Youngstown.
Youngstown was good. I spent a lot of my times probably just playing basketball, going to
Okay.
school. My family's really big, so we did a lot of things within our family. But really just grew up around the game. My dad played. I remember him working midnights at General Motors, and he'd get off at 7 a.m. and he'd pick me up from the house. My mom would go to work, and we'd go straight to the YMCA. And that's how I actually picked it up. I would watch him play at 7 a.m. I didn't have a choice. 'Cause he was going to hoop regardless, and I was sitting there watching him for about 2 hours, and then he'd come home and take his nap and get ready for midnights again. But life in Youngstown was good. I had no problems. So
That's what's up. Shout out Dad for
yeah,
putting that ball in your hand and being that influence. I love hearing that, because
yeah.
that's what I was gonna ask. I was gonna say, like, who influenced you, who put that rock in your hand. How old were you when you started going to the gyms with him?
Gosh, I was young, so originally he would send me to the babysitting room. But at 7 a.m., there's not a lot of kids down there to play with, so I remember being old enough to be like, "Dad, can I come upstairs?" And so he would sit me in the corner with a ball, and he'd just say, "Don't leave the gym." And I didn't want to leave because I didn't want to get in
Mhm.
trouble, so I just would start dribbling. And then I got old enough to be able to play and understand it. And so you play with the older guys; they let you play for fun, and your
Mhm.
points don't count. They pass you the ball, and then it became like your points started to count because they you were good. So
Yeah.
really, I just started playing with a men's ball with people that were my dad's age that gave me an opportunity. And then you go into the YMCA leagues. My mom was a cheerleader at Kent State, so she absolutely loved sports, especially football and basketball. They didn't have girls basketball back when she was in high school and college, and so she loved it.
Mhm.
And that was it was a double whammy for me. My dad was a hooper, and my mom enjoyed it, and they both supported me the whole time. Even when I picked it up, it was go time from there.
I love that. Shout out to the moms and dads for that, man. Shout out to them. What were some hoopers in the Youngstown area that you remember, like, playing against? Like, not necessarily in high school yet, or you can mention high school people too, but just who were some hoopers that you remember?
Gosh, well, Youngstown's a big football area, so a lot of the guys were football players that would play basketball for cardio. So I remember Maurice Claret would come up from Lifton. He was a big football star. Went to Ohio
Mhm.
State. He would come up from Lifton and come hoop for his cardio. So I mean, he was competitive. There were a lot of guys that really, I would say, allowed me to come in and play. But female wise, obviously you've got Tyra Grant, who we played high school together with for 2 years. Amber Bland was
That's
Foreman,
fun.
who ended up going. They both ended up at Penn State. Um, Gosh, there was a kid at Mooney that went to Pitt. There really back then we probably had about 1,000 to 2,000 point scores in the area
Mm.
at that very point in time, and it was competitive. We would all play. The Still Valley Conference was there, where you had Warren Harding, which was a big D1 school,
Yep.
and
Yep.
so it was really competitive. I think within those early 2000s, for women's basketball. It was a special time. I don't see it as prevalent now. I just don't know if kids are in the gym as much. But back then, that's all we did. We went to school, and then once school let out, we all met at the YMCA. The girls that could hoop was hooping on the boys. The boys allowed us to play. So that was pretty much how high school went, and middle school too.
Man, I know. I was just talking to other people the other recently on the podcast about, like, that early 2000s in Ohio. We had some hoopers from
Yeah,
2000 to about 2000, I don't know, 6 maybe.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
just straight ballers,
Yeah,
straight
I want to
ballers.
say it was probably within the 2 years. So when we go to the OGBR stuff, like
Hmm.
2004, 2003 class was probably like 7 or 8 McDonald's All Americans. Like literally,
Yeah.
you would just go play against the best talent in your state, and they'd be the best talent in the country sometimes. And so, it was kind of a cool, I think, atmosphere. And it's still there. I think Ohio basketball is one of the best in the country. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I think there's a lot of talent, and it's just different. So.
Yeah, it's a ton of talent. It's a ton of
Yeah,
talent. Even after us,
yeah,
now it's a ton of talent in Ohio. So coaches, if you need look for some talent, come to Ohio. You know what I mean? We got them dogs.
not too many,
Um,
not too many coaches. We don't
my
tackle them.
bad. You right. Only the coaches from Loyola. Y'all come through. Everybody else, y'all gotta wait.
Yeah.
But so AAU, we were just a little touching on that a little bit. AAU was big back then when we were playing. It's grown tremendously now.
Mhm.
What organization did you play for? Were you Queen City Jags?
I was. So I started on a little team outside of Youngstown. Somebody in the area had put it together. I actually got put on the B team. And my dad was like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we need to get some more exposure. So I went to a team in Cleveland called the Lake Erie Waves. A smaller team. We did go some places. We went down to Louisiana for a tournament. But that's when I started to see like all Ohio. SMAC had started up. And so I wanted to get probably on a bigger team. And I remember Tom Jenkins called my parents. And I'll never forget it. My mom was in the background, like, that's 5 hours away. We not doing it. And so Tom was like, let's just do one practice, come to one tournament. And that's kind of the rest is history. It was Amber Bland, Aisha Jefferson, Staretta Allen, Aaliyah Roddy. We really had a monster team. And our first tournament was a Deep South Classic. We had one practice in the parking lot. And that was it. I was like, I'm not going to no other team. I mean, I was throwing alley oops up to Amber. She was almost dunking them. It was
Oh
it
no.
was special time. So yeah, I played for Queen City Jags for the 2 years. And it was great. I really didn't play like at a young age like a lot of the kids are doing now. I started in like the 8th grade and tapped into it. And then yeah, ended up on the Jags when it was all said and done.
Yeah, that Jags team was special. I remember because you were younger than me. You were a year younger than me, so I remember your team.
Yeah.
And then we had our team too that just kind of came together
Mm-hmm.
randomly. Was Robin Shipley in your team too?
Robin Shipley was our three.
Yeah.
Me, Amber, Robin, and then Aisha Jefferson, Aaliyah Roddy were the starting five. And then we had Staretta Allen coming off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
We had Whitney coming off the bench that was from Cincinnati. So we had a lot of talent. I think everybody, but maybe like one went D1. It was really special, and we all got along. Literally, nobody cared about getting recruited. It wasn't that much of a show back then. It was just literally you just hooped and wanted to win. We really didn't even know who we were playing against half the time. We traveled to Florida and whatnot, and you play against somebody, they'd be like, oh, they was the best point guard in the country. You're like, man, I didn't know. So it was just different back then. We really didn't know each other. We got thrown together like, I think that was the first year that everything that got thrown together was just the age differences. Because y'all had Wanisha, and Wanisha was class, but I think she was older. So if she would have been with us, it would have been a problem. So no, it was good times, man. I think about those times often for sure.
Yeah, same, man. Just like you said, we just were hooping. Like we just wanted to play because we loved the game. It fed our soul.
Yeah.
We didn't know who we were playing against until after the game. And then I remember in high school, my AD called me into his office and he was like, here you go. And he had like a box full of like letters. And I'm like, what are these?
Yeah.
And he's like, college letters. And I was like, colleges was at the games? Like we had no idea. So that's kind of like, how it started making sense to me. I was like, oh, like I could probably go to college for this.
Yeah.
No idea.
Same. They were sending media guys back then. And I remember my dad lined them around the basement. And I was like, what are these? And he's like, they're media guys. You got letters. And I'm like, I don't know. But it's definitely evolved and changed. I tell people all the time, I don't know how I would have acted if it was like this back then. Like, y'all got cameras. Like, I might have just dribble back out and win at somebody's ankles again. I don't know, but it's
Right. Just to
ball
post
game.
it.
Yeah, it's different than back when we were playing. It was, you just picked up the ball and you hooped and you had your squad and you pulled up to a city and played. That was it.
That's it. That's
That was
it.
it.
That's it. So Ursuline High School is okay. So you said Youngstown is more of a football school. Was
Yeah,
Ursuline High School big on football as well?
yeah. So here you go with that Cincinnati. So down there they call it Ursuline. Up in, it's always been like that, even back in high school. So when I would come to AAU down there, everybody would say Ursuline because it was an Ursuline down there, but it's Ursuline. We say Ursuline. So
Ursuline.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's the it's funny because you said that because that's always been the whole thing in the state. But it's huge football. Our football team actually my freshman year won state, and that was probably one of the biggest motivations. Our football team won state, our baseball team won state, and then basketball season rolled around, and that was something like I immediately wanted to do at our school. My parents would always take me down to the state championship for girls because he coached high school basketball before I got into high school. So we would always go. So I knew where it was. I knew what it, felt like, looked like from the stands. But my high school was really, really good in football. And they would always send players D1 for football. So that was kind of another level that intrigued me and helped me understand, like, you can be recruited for sports and to win a state championship is very special. So that was something that I wanted to do. I ended up doing it, or we ended up doing it my senior year. Tyra Grant was a big help. We had other players, but Tyra is arguably one of the best players, if not the best, to come out of Ursuline. And so we did something special my senior year, her sophomore year, and we were able to win the only state championship in any girl sport in our high school still to this day. So it's kind of special because that was a goal walking in, and seeing that from football helped transpire to do something special for girls basketball in our high school. So yeah, Northeast Ohio is really, really big, really, really big on football. And I think Ohio period is just, everybody grows up an Ohio State Buckeyes fan. You're watching football games on Saturday. So yeah, it was not, even when we were winning, it was not a very big girls basketball populated area for sure.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you had that passion.
Yeah.
I had something similar going into my high school. My high school was a lot smaller than yours, but I still had that same fire. So for you to have that fire and be like, yo, I see this, I see what winning looks like. This is what I want to do. I want to win. I want to bring a championship to the girls program, and you did that. You did
Yeah.
that. So that's dope. Did you play any other sports besides basketball?
So I played softball. Middle school, I played softball and track, and then when I got to high school, I was nervous because it was a Catholic school. I never grew up with any of the kids. I kind of just went into the high school not knowing, with any expectation, not knowing what it was going to look like, feel like. I did not play my freshman year just because I was nervous. And then we had a coaching change my sophomore year in the end. And he was like, look, come play, just try it. So I ended up playing softball for my last 2 years of high school. A lot of people used to tell my parents to kind of push me that direction. I mean, I'm not the tallest, the fastest, all that meet the eye test. So I'm probably built more like a softball player, and I was actually decent. So a lot of people told my parents, hey, she might not be D1 because she's this height, she's that. And so, yeah, I ended up playing both, but my love was basketball at the end of the day. So
Trumped all. I think it's good to play multiple sports, because I think they all go hand in hand. Like, for example, like with softball, that's a sport I can't play, period. I'm athletic, but that sport, I'm gonna pass on that one. But it helps you with, hand and eye coordination, timing, speed,
yeah.
like all of that. So, that's dope that you did play another sport. And I'm glad that you didn't listen to those haters saying like, yo, she should just play softball and forget about basketball. Like,
Yeah.
I hate when people try to put you in a box like that. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of whack. So when did you realize, like, okay, I want to take hoop to the next level? What year was that?
So funny story. My freshman year, the whole transferring into a Catholic high school. I grew up in a town called McDonald that was a mile by a mile square. We had probably like 2 stoplights. My class was of 53. And then I ended up going to Ursuline, which probably our class was like about 115, I'd say. So first week of school, I walk in, and we're about to start up basketball, and I'm hearing rumors like that there's this good freshman that came to play basketball, and I'm like nervous. I'm like, oh man, like it's freshmen out here that's supposed to be really, really good. I had no idea. And then I found out later that teachers were like coming up to me and looking at me like, that's who it is. And so I had no idea that the good freshman was me at all. I ended up walking in and playing varsity, starting varsity, which was a big deal at our school. My coach was actually the baseball coach too. So he had never really played basketball. He just was a girls basketball coach and baseball. One of my favorite guys ever, honestly. Taught me a lot about the game and being persistent and overcoming things. He passed away about 2-3 years ago. But really, I'll never forget the opportunity he gave me as a freshman, because that wasn't something that was done at our school. But he gave me an opportunity not just to play, but to be a leader, to use my gifts and my skill. And I remember they wrote a big article. I think I had like 38 against our rival, and I was like freshly 14 or something like that. And so at that point, I think I started to realize that I was good. I still had no idea that, like I said, that I was the freshman that everybody was talking about. The whole time I was nervous to even go play against whoever they was talking about. And it was, so I think my freshman year, I kind of knew that if I was able to do those things on varsity when there were other freshmen playing freshman in JV, there was a little bit of a difference and a separator in my game and my ability. And I think that's when I kind of was like, okay, how good do you want to be and how special can you be? And I just, like I said, I probably could have worked a little harder looking back, and that's just the nugget for people who are talented, kids who are talented. You pick up the ball and you go play against high school kids who are good, but just putting in the extra work. I remember my dad trying to get me to get extra shots up after practice, and I'd be like, all right, Dad, okay, I'm gonna go home. But that I probably could have done a little bit better job at. But I'd say my freshman year is when I kind of started to take it serious, and after school and after practice, going down to the Y and playing some more and just playing with the guys. I think that's when I started to figure out that I could play at the next level.
Yeah. I think we're similar in a lot of ways, because I have that same thing I say about myself. Like if I just went a little bit harder, because I have passion, I have fire. I could eat, sleep, and drink ball. Like I had all the things, but I should have went just a little bit. You know what I mean?
That's the difference. I think now is, a lot of the players now have like trainers, which sometimes they can overtrain. And I don't think they play enough 5-on-5 to understand the concept of playing together. We try to do all these moves 1-on-1 and kill and all that. So I think that's the combination that I probably wished would have been back then. Because my parents wasn't like, you going to pay this amount for a trainer. You're going to go outside and play in the driveway, or you're going to go down the street to the playground for free. So just really probably that investment in it is really trying to craft your game at that age. I think I could have or would have benefited more from like the new generation is doing now, is more so just spending time really getting shots up, really working on moves. Doing moves. We did moves and we just did them. Now they call Euros. They call like we was just going around people, or So, I think really understanding the terminology and the concepts probably would have helped back in the day. But we just
I'm laughing because I swear we were just out there like spin move. Now it's like a spin cycle. It's barbecue chicken, now they're telling you if you step at this, and I'm a trainer, so I'm really talking about myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like you step here and then you spin 90 degrees and then you put the ball down. It's like, it ain't that complicated.
Yeah, no, honestly, it was just you went around somebody. Wasn't no Euro. I think I was grown before I heard the term Euro. Excuse me, like you in my way. You got to go around. So
right, like I faked you, and you thought I was gonna go here, but I really in my mind was trying to go left. So I faked you out for real.
That's it. That was it. Wasn't no terms.
Right. Okay. So what player did you grow up loving and ultimately patting your game after?
I don't know if I really had one player. I know that, like I said, my dad, he would take me around the city. It was a player called Tanisha Franklin who was at a city school in Youngstown, and she had some shake to her game and really could hoop. And then we go, to a suburb game and watch somebody who can shoot the ball. I mean, really, he would take me just to watch basketball. I don't know if it was really a player that I really said I want to be like. Obviously, I would watch the NBA. I remember my dad would have the NBA game, and I have like a Nerf hoop on the door right next to it. So I'd try to do whatever Michael Jordan was doing. Obviously, Muggsy Bogues being a little guy on the court, like that was always intriguing. Watching the pros, but I don't know if I grew up really idolizing one person. The WNBA wasn't big at the time, obviously. And then when the Houston Comets and it got going, obviously everybody loves Cheryl Swoops and all that good stuff. So really, cool. I just think that really it was about watching the game and really learning from all levels. Honestly, I would watch people my age, people that were in high school when I was in middle school. College games weren't really on TV like that. Just really watching anything and everything basketball. And like I said, I think that was just my parents kind of like, that's what they enjoy. And they do it now to this day. They had Cavs tickets and stuff like that. So it was really something that I grew up on. And I think helped me be the player that I was, because again, I'm only about 5'3", 5'4" is what I was listed at. But
say 5'4".
Yeah, we're gonna claim 5'4" for the rest of my life. But really, I think it was the IQ part that helped me play, because I could outsmart a lot of things that maybe I wasn't tall enough to do, or guard somebody who was 6 foot in that manner. So I think watching the game and just studying everybody was big for me and helped me grow knowledge-wise. I think that was my biggest strength when it came to the game of basketball.
I love to hear that, because that's a huge skill that we got to get these players now to really recognize. Like, okay, you can do the step back. James Harden, I don't even know what moves, I can't even name them, but it's cool to do those. But can you make a bounce pass? You know what I mean? In traffic type stuff. So IQ is huge. And you had an amazing high school career, top 50 in 2004 class. You went to the Adidas camp. Talk to me a little bit about that. I never made a camp, Nike or Adidas, but talk to me about just what it was like to go and experience those camps.
Honestly, again, it was, I think I realized a lot of it in hindsight, what I was actually experiencing. It was, for me, it was picking up a ball and hooping. Amber Bland and I became very close because we were from Youngstown, ended up playing on the Jags together. And she was top probably 30, 40 in the country. So we really shared a lot of things and similarities and personalities. Like, we really just enjoyed hooping and getting to know people. So we both played in that Adidas All-American game. I did not get in the McDonald's All-American. Queen City Jags were sponsored by Adidas. That could have a little bit to do with it. But it was cool. I remember playing against Candace Parker. I remember getting posted up by Candace Wiggins and really seeing the talent all over the country. Like, oh, there's some big guards out here. Like, okay, I see why Candace Parker is the number 1 point guard in the country. She's 6'3" and doing what I'm doing and can see over me 3 times. So it was special in hindsight. I remember Kyle Lowry and I, our birthdays are a day apart. So we had a birthday cake together. I'm like, man, I should have put on my camera. Dwight Howard was on the men's side, Jakeem Noah. So we were playing spades together. So like, I have a lot of those memories going way back when, but it was probably in hindsight that I realized how cool it was to be able to participate in those things in the long run. So really for me, it was just about picking up the ball. And I didn't know, honestly, I did not know maybe how special or how talented I was. I was literally enjoying the moment and letting the ball take me where it was supposed to take me.
Yeah. And that's good that you still have those memories, with those people. I'm sure you got some pictures or like a catalog or something like that.
They deep in my basement if they do. If I do.
I know.
We ain't had stuff back then, you know what I mean? So
right.
You had to have like a camera, and then you had to go get it developed. So it's really just your memories. I mean, it would be, that's what I said. Now it's different. Like as a college coach, you get to see these circuits, the Adidas circuits, because back then it was the Nike, and there was an Adidas circuit. There's the Under Armour circuit now. Man, they had it 2-3 years ago. It was the first Under Armour circuit, and they had a DJ, they had an MC. I'm like, this is extraordinary. Yeah, just so I often sit here when I'm recruiting, I'm like, man, if we had that back in the day, it'd have been crazy. But it's good to see how much it's evolved, and I hope that these current student athletes are understanding where times have come from and really take advantage of this. I mean, like I said, you got phones, you got videos, you can meet players from across the country who's the best in the country before, and really share those similar experiences and what you're going through, the recruitment process, without meeting somebody in person. So it was a special time, and like I said, I have a lot of memories in my mind that I'll try to hold on to forever. So
love that. And you're right. Like we didn't know who was the top talented person on the West Coast. You know, we had to go to a camp or whatever to see them, or AAU, you know, to see them and to see, you know, who's popping and who your competition might be. So that's another reason why, you know, I'm like, I want to do this podcast because, you know, we got to, you know, pay homage, pay homage to, you know, those who came before, you know.
Yeah.
And we do the same thing. You know, we look up to, you mentioned Cheryl Swoops, like, loved her. So we try to pay homage to her and, you know, show our respects, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, the older you get, there's players, for instance, like I said, I'm 5'4", so a lot of colleges probably looked at me a little different as far as offering a scholarship. But I'll never forget, it was a tournament down in Atlanta, and I had played against, her name's Erica White. She ended up going to LSU, got drafted. But we were about the same height. She was super quick, and I gave her the business a little bit. Had no idea who she was. And at the time, Sylvia Fowles was on her AAU team, Elena Larkin. Like, they had some studs. Obviously, Sylvia is still getting buckets to this day and is going to go down as one of the greatest power forwards in the game ever. But we had no idea. We were playing against them. We lost by like 7. I probably had about 20, and it was on her. And really, that game right there opened the floodgates. I probably gained so many offers, but we weren't out here searching for them. It was literally you would have a good game, and not knowing you had a good game on somebody that was like that. And to this day, me and Erica always see each other, or we go back and forth on social media. I'm like, you know, I hype her up. She talk about me being able to shoot, and I'm like, man, I can't even stay in front of you. Like, so it's funny because, you know, you always have those memories, even though, you know, you probably can't look them up or find them on any type of social media platform. But you remember the competition, you remember faces, you remember names, even way back when. So
what was your recruiting experience like? Did you take all 5 visits? You know, was there any other school that, you know, could have gotten you besides Michigan State?
So I wasn't a huge fan of it. Like I said, I kind of picked up the ball, was very family oriented. So a lot of my close people were my family. I was raised kind of an only child. I have an older brother that I got to know as I got older, but I was kind of a loner. I stuck to myself quite a bit. That's probably why I picked up basketball, because I can always take my ball and go outside and shoot. But I didn't really understand the process, why people were calling the house phone back then and why I had to sit there and answer, and how it went. Right. Yeah. And how it went. So I kind of was ready to get it done with. I played going into my junior year summer, and that's kind of where it blew up a little bit. I did plan 5 official visits, and I made it to the first one and committed. So I went to Michigan State on a visit, loved the campus. I wanted to be kind of close to home where my parents could come to games because they were big supporters. So I didn't want to go too far. I wanted them to be able to enjoy coming to games. So I did not make it to all 5. It would have been, it was West Virginia. Right after that, it was Syracuse. I had a thing for Melo, but he was going to the league. He was a year older than me, so he went to the league. So probably not the right reasons you should be looking at a school. I liked Melo at the time. Syracuse, and my last school was Louisville. So those were the 4 or 5 I was kind of looking at and wanting to stay. Pitt, I had looked at Pitt a little bit because it was about an hour and a half. But I liked Michigan State. It was 4.5 hours. Renee Haynes was already there, who was from Columbus, and her family is from Youngstown too. She has some family from there. So I felt comfort in that. The assistant there was from Cleveland area. So there was
Okay.
just some ties. There was another player, Maisha Bannister, that was from Cleveland. There was just some ties there that I appreciated, and it felt like family, felt like home. And so once I got there, I was done. I saw Magic Johnson on my official visit, and I was like, "Oh yeah, we there." So yeah,
Oh, wow.
I don't necessarily say that you should do that, because I do think you should do your research. Now a lot of players are taking unofficial visits more so, than we used to.
Yeah.
So I do recommend making sure you find your fit by researching, going to see the schools of that nature. But yeah, I was a one and done on my visits. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. I was kind of nervous. I didn't know the game. I had no one to kind of mentor me on in terms of like, this is what you look for. Make sure you ask these type of questions. We kind of just went in and was just like, okay, talk to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so I had two schools that I was like on the fence about, and I went to Xavier,
yeah,
did an official, and then I didn't make my decision yet, but they came to my parents' house and was just like, "Look, we want you, but we got these other girls that we gonna holler at. So make your decision." And I was like, "Oh shit!" Like,
yeah,
all
yeah,
right, I'm coming. You know what I mean? But you know, not that they pressure me, but also it was close to home, so I feel you. You want
yeah,
your parents, and family to come see you. You want it
yeah,
to be the right fit. Make sure it's a good school. You'll get a good education. At the end of the day, so those things, you're right. Do and should make a difference when choosing
yeah.
a school.
And I tell recruits all the time, I'm like, just do your research. I say
Mhm.
go to every school's website. There's campus tours. You can see inside the dorms. You can see a whole practice on it. Like you can see social medias, Twitter. You can go to a team's Twitter and get every coach's personality, meet every
Right.
player. Things that we was flipping through the media guide, like, and that was it. There wasn't as many resources as there is now to find that perfect fit. And I think that that's the thing that I preach the most. I try to use some of the things that we experience with the recruiting process to genuinely help student athletes, whether they choose us or not.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's the important. You don't want to see anybody go through 4 years and not be happy, not waste their time, things of that nature. So I really, really preach like finding a good fit, what you want outside of basketball, major wise, and having a coach in a program that supports those things is important.
Yeah.
And like you said, I just think that there's so many more research sources and opportunities now that they should really, really take advantage of, because it wasn't always there to help us make decisions that were very important. I mean, that's the biggest decision you make of your life up until that point.
Mhm.
And so to not like my mom went to college, but she was a cheerleader. My dad didn't go to college, so it's not only are you picking a college to play college athletics for, like you're going to college. And there's still a lot of first generation students going to college to play basketball and things
Yep.
of that nature. So like you said, I had good grades. I did the things that I was supposed to do, but I didn't have that guidance to help make those decisions and what I needed, what I looked for, my style of play. Like I didn't know what my style of play was. I put the ball in
Right.
the hole, so,
Yeah.
are you going to fit with that offense? Those are the things you can see and
Mhm.
ask nowadays that you couldn't probably always see. I mean, how would you see a game, a college
Yeah.
game? Like we weren't on ESPN like that
Mm-mm.
growing up. So nowadays you can watch a team on an elite time on ESPN primetime games and watch, Baylor and South Carolina and really see what that looks like and have that vision and that dream, when really we were just, playing, picking up the
Yeah.
ball and playing.
Yep. And shout out to the game now is growing, like we were talking about with AAU, but the women's game is growing so much. And like you said, there's so many ways to tap into a team and really get that inside scoop, quote unquote, to if you fit with that team, the coaches' personalities, like et cetera, et cetera. So you're right, like so many resources are out there now for these young ladies and even, on the guy side too. I mean, there's do your research. I really like how you plug that. Like, do your research. So for any current athlete or future athlete, looking to go to college, like do your research. From top to bottom, the major you want, maybe the type of school, campus, HBCU, or whatever. Like, do it all. Do it
Yeah,
all.
for sure.
So Michigan State was big time. Big Ten basketball. Your senior year, we're coming off a state championship. man, I believe you got the MVP, of that game. You guys went 26-2 your senior year. How were you feeling at the time, heading into your freshman year at Michigan State?
Oh, I was confident. I was confident. I thought that it would just be like walking into high school all over again, in a sense. Until I pulled up that summer and we didn't touch a ball for a minute, and we was on the track and in the weight room, and I was like, "What did I sign up for?" But I was confident in my game, in my ability to play. But I quickly learned that there was just another level of being an athlete, a college athlete, a level of discipline, a level of pushing yourself mentally and physically. And for me, it was both. It was both for me. The game had always kind of came easy. And I did the right things. Like my dad was a coach. I knew I didn't miss practice. I had good grades. So I had those things lined up. And when I got to college, I struggled with it. I struggled with, some of the expectations. I was one of the highest recruits that Michigan State had ever had. We were really good my freshman year. We ended up going to the national championship and giving Baylor their first one. And so it was a very, very big struggle for me my freshman year from start to finish. Taught me a lot. I still say to this day that it was probably the most life-changing year I had, and really shaped and molded me to really get through life. Just within that year, a lot of setbacks, a lot of trials, a lot of success, all in one year. But I was confident, and then quickly started to experience things that I had never experienced. So it was a year. It was a year, my freshman year.
Yeah. That's another thing that we have in common a little bit. Coming from high school, I was, in the paper a lot. Pretty well known around the Cincinnati area and Ohio. And then I get there my freshman year and I wasn't playing very much and I wasn't practicing very much. And, just it was messing with me mentally. And that
Yeah,
was at that time one of the biggest struggles that I've had ever in my life, just not playing. You go
yeah,
from every minute, never coming out of the game in high school to not even playing, not
yeah,
even practicing. It messed with me. It messed with me. It messed with my grades. I was really close to being ineligible. Thankfully, we had to be there that summer and we had to take courses. So that kind of like found his way and tied in. And I was, still looking to be eligible, but I was really, really close. And it just messed with me. So that that's a big deal to notice that, like you were saying, like you learn from it and you build off of that. But that's a tough time coming in as a freshman and coming from a senior to that.
yeah. It's funny you said that you were almost, because I was actually ineligible. I don't know if you had knew that part, but um, the summer I was fine. I mean, I struggled on the track, not so much in the weight room, but it was really the times on the track and the running part. You run suicides in high school, but like to consistently have to string those at the lifting, and I was naturally strong, so I didn't really lift in high school. But my summer, I was fine. I had like a 3.0, 3.5 in a one class. And then I got into fall, and I was presented with some challenges, like, you're going to have to do the X, Y, and Z to play, or you might not play. And that, like you said, mentally, it's like all you know is hooping. And that's like your outlet away from the things that you did struggle with, like that came natural and that was something you enjoyed and was fun. And so some of the fun, and partially it was on me. I allowed myself to take away some of the fun behind it, and it caused me to struggle academically. According to Michigan State standards, I failed a class, one class that put me under. I played in the first, I want to say, 6 games of the season. Was probably the first freshman off the bench. Was getting some decent minutes, and then ended up failing a test right before Thanksgiving and became academically ineligible. So it was, like I said, it was one of the toughest years because you come in highly talented. You're expected to be, really good and produce as a freshman. And by the time I got on the court and played, I had already dug myself into a hole that I obviously couldn't get out of. And so, like I said, I played the first 6 games. And then after becoming ineligible, all you could do was sit on the bench, dressed in regular street clothes. So everybody knows that you're not getting in the game because you're not in a uniform. And then it becomes a why. And so then you had to, put that embarrassment at the time. You're 18 years old. And now you're ineligible, which you never, you didn't even think of that, nor knew what it looked like, because I was on National Honor Society in high school. Like, I had never had grade problems, and I was afraid to tell my parents that I had struggled. So I didn't have their advice because I was afraid to tell them and get in trouble. And so, like I said, I ended up being ineligible after 6 games, but it taught me a lot because I had to go to practice every day. I still had to show up for my teammates, who, again, were really, really good. We had like 4 WNBA picks. We went to the national championship there. I remember you couldn't travel for away games. So our transfer, who was sitting out at the time, we would get in the car and drive. We would drive to Ohio State because you could still sit on the bench. You just couldn't ride with the team, or you couldn't, practice on the road or anything like that, but you can show up to games. So I remember taking those rides to Michigan, the games that we can get to. And I remember we beat Tennessee. We weren't supposed to beat Tennessee in the, I think it was the Elite 8 or the Final 4 to get to the national championship. And I was so happy for us. But, I remember crying. I cried in my parents' arms in the stands because they had came and got me. I think the Final 4 was in Indianapolis at the time. And so they came up to Michigan and got me, and we drove down, and it was a lot of emotions because I knew I wanted to be there and feel that moment, but I also knew I had helped. I took pride in being the best player on scout team. Like, if I got to come to practice every day, I got to make my teammates better so that we could beat Tennessee. So I was probably Candace Parker or somebody on that team that helped prepare. And to this day, Renee, Kristen Haney, a lot of my teammates never shame me or look at me any type of way as not a part of that run and that team, which I appreciate because it was a struggle. It was a struggle for me mentally. I didn't know how to come back from that. Do I keep going on at Michigan State? Am I good enough at this point, academically and physically? But I ended up going on Weight Watchers that summer. I stayed that summer. I said, I'm not going home. I stayed that summer going into my sophomore year, lost about like 30 pounds and got in the best shape of my life. And, made sure I buckled down in the classroom, and I didn't have any other issues academically. I graduated in 4 years. And so that's why I say that freshman year was very pivotal for me because there was a lot of alone time. They go on 4-day road trips and you're sitting there without a car in a dorm, over a Christmas break because you're there for practice and everybody ain't gone to be with their family for the holidays. The cafeteria ain't really open. So there was a lot of growing up in that early 18-year-old mind of mine. And so for me to have gotten through that year and kind of pushed through, I use that for life now. And it took a while for me to even be able to tell that story. I mean, people knew just because they would follow me at Michigan State. But it took till I was probably late 20s to really be comfortable in sharing that because somebody needs to hear it. It was more of an embarrassment thing at the time, but now I tell people all the time, like, you don't ever want to feel that. Like, it's not even in your hands to be able to play. Like, you don't have control of the situation. So I share it now all the time just because I don't want any 18-year-old to have to go through or feel it, or anybody 18 to 22, however old you're playing, to have to go through that experience. So it's funny you said that you were almost there because I was.
Yeah.
So.
Man, thank you for sharing that, man, because that's deep and that's stuff that we hold inside of us because it could be pride, it could be whatever it is, you know what I mean? But being able to talk about it is definitely a way to heal from it. But at the time, you didn't really know how to express those feelings. You know what I mean? So shout out to your teammates too for never, like you said, shaming you and always making you feel a part of that team because you definitely were. You definitely were. But for real, thank you for sharing that because we have to look at ourselves because it took me like that same summer, like you said, you stayed home, or I'm sorry, you stayed at school, you put in that work, you made sure you was in the best shape of your life heading into your sophomore year, and you had to take a look at self. You didn't look at the coaches, you didn't look at the professors and was blaming them. You know what I mean? Like I did that. The reason why I'm playing, I was like, I'm good, I'm this, I'm that. I started blaming everybody else.
I might have did that a little bit. Are you 18 years old? It can't be all your fault, right? You know what I'm saying? I mean, again, in hindsight, that's things you look back in. Like, I probably didn't take into account that I probably should have put in more work to get in better shape so that I can be mentally focused and not be stressed out trying to make a mile and a half time. What extra work was I doing? So I probably did say, why we got to do the mile and a half when you get a time out here or there, I get to stop it. You do. So, but that's a part of the growth and the learning. you kind of use that for life. Like you don't always, you go through things now and it's like, hey, well, what could I have done differently to not put myself in this situation now as an adult? So
Yep. Man, I'm telling you, as an athlete, every situation I apply it to my daily life
yeah,
all the time. And I'm my girlfriend, she probably hates that I always reference basketball because I'm like so many lessons in life, man. I learned it through hoop. I
it
learned
is.
through man.
That
So your
hashtag more than
sophomore,
a game is serious.
say it again.
I said that hashtag more than a game is serious. Like it really. I mean, I don't know who I would be if I didn't pick it up and the things that it taught me. I mean, all the records and stuff was good, but like I don't hold a record at my school no more. I mean, it gets broken, but like, what did it teach you along the way? You know, and I don't think that people understand that don't play a sport and really understand what it gives you and who it shapes you to be.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Going through that summer, your sophomore year, you are seeing action, backup point guard, you playing minutes against big time opponents. Um, I want to hear from a point guard's perspective. Like you're an extension of the coach. Talk to us about the importance of that position. On the team.
I had some great leaders in front of me. Lindsey Bowen and Kristen Haney were juniors and seniors my freshman year. And like I said, we were coming off a national championship going into my sophomore year. So I wanted to work to contribute. That was my biggest thing at that point. I didn't get to contribute. I still to this day feel like if I wasn't ineligible, we could have been national champions. Because I knew that I was talented enough and I was playing before I was ineligible that, we might have needed one more guard coming off the bench to give us some firepower or whatever. I was kind of like a spark off the bench. And so I really took that to heart going into my sophomore year and wanted to do anything I could to contribute to the team. And so I ended up being sixth man the majority of my sophomore year and coming off the bench and really just kind of trying to be a leader and still listen to those who were leading me because I essentially was in my sophomore year was my freshman year all over again. Mm-hmm. And so I think the biggest part was to do anything and everything that I could and buy in completely. So like I said, coach was saying you need to get in shape. And that's what I did. I got in shape my sophomore year. We were really good then. We either went to the Sweet 16 or Elite 8. We were still good the following year. So I really took that year and just tried to do whatever I could for my teammates and listen to my coaches without giving an excuse, without having, just having anything to say. I really just wanted to do anything and everything. So that was really big my sophomore year. And then my junior year, I was starting to get comfortable at that point. I got past the whole being an eligible thing. I knew I could contribute on the court. And going into my junior year, I ended up tearing my Achilles. So it was the last open gym of summer session. Yeah. So I came back my sophomore year after all that, got in the best shape of my life. And then that summer going into my junior year, last open gym before you go home for the fall, tore my Achilles. And so I had surgery immediately and was actually back playing in 4 months. So, yeah, I don't know if that's the best. I would suggest that everybody fully rehabs. That's about a 6 month to 2 year injury. I would wear the boot off the court, and whenever we had practice or games, I would take it off and hoop. I had a sleeve and would rehab 3 times a day. But it was just another thing that I felt like I was starting to get rolling, and then boom, here comes an injury. And so that was another thing I had to overcome. But I ended up coming back in 4 months because again, that sense of my team needed me. To do whatever was still in me. Like, so I came back. We weren't really guard heavy, I don't think, especially at the point. So I became, again, the sixth man, even 4 months out of Achilles surgery. And to this day, I can't do a calf raise really on the one leg. But I'm going to take it back because I felt like I owed anything and everything I could give to my teammates because I had missed out on so much my freshman year. So I came back, played the conference season. So from January on, I played my junior year and then kind of just finished it out my senior year with the coaching change. And that was the 4 years. So It
Yeah.
wasn't as smooth as it probably could have been, but I will say that those 4 years probably taught me the most about just adversity and overcoming and being able to keep going. So now
Yeah.
when things hit me, now I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna figure it out and I'm gonna keep
Yeah.
going and I can always overcome. So that's kind of what happened. I got in the best shape and there goes the Achilles. So
Life. That's another lesson. Sports is teaching us another lesson that you just
yeah,
apply to your daily life. You
that's
know,
it.
you on the high, you get knocked back down, you persevere, you go after it, you put your blood, sweat, and tears
Yeah.
into what you love, and you finish it out. And you ride out. Man, I didn't know you had tore your Achilles, man.
Tore my Achilles into August. Into August. It was
Well, your senior year, you know your last y'all went to the WNIT championship game.
mhm.
I think y'all played Marquette. I was kind of doing some research. You hit like a 20 piece. You hit a 20 piece on your last game. Um, what was next? You know what I mean? Like after
Yeah.
that, the wheels start turning. What was next?
Oh man, for me, oddly at that point, I didn't want to keep playing. You know, everybody's has that overseas dream. I was really big on family. My grandmother was one of nine, so I have a million cousins, and I missed them. Even though I was 4 hours away, like I missed them. They would always come to all my high school games. They followed me from afar, but I really wanted to go home and kind of be around them and get that love again and kind of feel on that a little bit. So I didn't really have a desire to go overseas. I wanted to play, so I would still pick it up. I would go play at the Y or find a league to play in, stuff like that. But I had no real desire to go to a different country and play basketball to be called a pro. I just at that point I felt like I was comfortable enough in my career on the court, and it was time for me to find a new identity, which was very very hard. Um, it was very hard, and honestly, I took a year from school, didn't know what I wanted to do. I coached a high school at a summer. I was a summer aid teacher, so I did like gym in the summer, and then I took a year off, and I ended up going back to college and got my master's. So my plan was to be a guidance counselor, and I wanted to develop this program that was specifically for transitioning high school student athletes to college. Because again, my story, my journey was like you had good grades, you didn't really get in trouble, so I didn't really see the guidance counselor. But again, my dad didn't go to college, and my mom went to be a cheerleader, so it wasn't your college athlete as far as basketball experience. So I didn't know what it entailed as far as time management, what I didn't know I was going to show up first week and have to run X, Y, and Z. Those
Yeah.
things, I wanted to start a program for all sports that really just probably just gave a platform, whether it was how to build time management,
Mhm.
discipline on your food and your eating, because you eating whatever your family give you. You don't
That's
really
true.
know, what's nutrition, which time you should be eating, how many hours of sleep until you get to college. And they tell
Yeah.
you those things and you try to build that habit. But think about if you could build that habit in the 4 years of college or high school with those resources and the athlete you could be in college. So I really wanted to build some type of platform and program. That was my goal when I went back to get my master's. And I ended up doing my 2 years at Youngstown State and coaching high school basketball for 5 years, and then kind of fell into college coaching. I became a Dobo at Youngstown State. I had coached the athletic director's daughter in high
Yeah.
school. She wasn't really a basketball player, but I really kind of cared and poured into the person, and he saw that. And
Mhm.
so when they had a coaching change at Youngstown State, I got an opportunity to be the director of basketball operations, and it's kind of how I've been doing this thing for the last 9 years, I'd say. So I did 5 years. I coached in high school. I just kind of wanted to stay around the game
Yeah.
and pour back into it. As long as I can be in the gym, I was cool. I didn't necessarily have to keep playing. So, but that was still a big identity crisis for me. You go from signing autographs and your jersey and your autograph really don't mean nothing to like don't nobody know you. A has been
Yeah.
type thing. So I was an insurance agent. I worked at a bank for a little bit while I was full
Okay.
time in school and coaching. So I had a little bit of trying to figure out life for about I'd say 2-3 years after I got done hooping.
Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
love to hear that you want to, you want to do that. that work to help athletes transition. That's important. I hope you are really still trying to do that because that is
Well, it's
extremely
a little
important.
different now because you when you coach in college, it's the NCAA got so many rules and regulations, so
True.
you can't really tap into all that. But yeah, if that ever had to be my path or my journey after coaching, if I ever had to hang it up, that would be something I would still be very passionate about. And like I said, that's why I wanted to be a guidance counselor, to really kind of tap into that route, because like I said, my high school had a lot of good athletes like
Mhm.
football, baseball, and I knew some football players that had similar journeys and even harder journeys. They're like, maybe came from the inner city and ended up coming to our Catholic school with an opportunity, but still, didn't really have any guidance at all. Like, I had two parents, I had, a system of support, and I still struggled. But
Yeah.
imagine not having any of that,
Mhm.
and nobody telling you, and then you just are good enough to get a scholarship, and then you get shipped away hours away and be like, okay, you got to go here because they paying for your school. You still don't
Yeah.
know what you're supposed to do. So I've always kind of had that in the back of my head. I don't know what it would have looked like. I actually did my master's. We had to do like a thesis and a build a program, and I kind of did something like that back then. But I still have that kind of passion for that, just because I just think it's still even necessary and needed across the
Yeah.
sports realm. So
Definitely. Definitely. That's what's up, man. Keep that fire and passion. It's gonna come. It's gonna come.
one
Dang, the
day,
NCAA and these rules, but it's definitely gonna come. And I'm glad you shared your story into how you got into coaching because I was really interested in how you did because I was the same way. Like after hoop, after overseas in 2013. Well, first I went in 2008 and then I didn't get another contract. So I came home and I'm like, okay, what is next? So I worked at Xavier for 2 years and then Coach McGuff ended up leaving. And he was like, yo, you want to go with me to Washington? And I'm like, nah, I still feel like I can go. I feel like I can hoop. So I stayed in Cincinnati. Um, and like nothing was really coming. So I was like, man, I need to get a job. I need to get a job. So I started working at FedEx, and it was like 2 years, and I was like, man, is this the road my life was about to take? Like, no, like I cannot do this. So luckily, I was able to go back overseas another year, but that was only a 1 year stint, and then I kind of was just like, what's next?
yeah,
So connections are big. So that was amazing that you were able to build a connection with your athletic director's daughter, and then he put you on at Youngstown. You say you've been coaching for 9 years.
yeah. I
That's a
was
long
director
time.
director ops for 2 of the 9, and then got an assistant job. Just kind of let the ball in the game take me kind of through the
Yeah.
journey. I didn't. I wanted to get into coaching. I even applied for some D3s and got told no um, before I got the D1 job, and so like that's when I had went back to school and was like, I'll go back to school, get my master's, and just coach high school
Yeah.
and be good with that. So I coached high school. I was a assistant for 3 years, and then I became a head coach for 2 under my high school coach that was there. He kind of just gave me the keys after.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then, yeah, I fell into it and fell in love to be able to coach it. I mean, you get to go to work in sweats pretty much the majority of the
Yeah.
day, and you get to be around the game and call it a job. Like I said, like you said, when I was a bank teller, I think that was really when it hit me. Like, what am I gonna do? Because I remember sitting in the drive-through, staring out the window, like, man, I used to run around for 3 hours, be so busy. Now I'm sitting here in this seat counting money
Yeah.
for all these hours, and
Yeah.
it wasn't me.
Looking at the clock.
Yeah, so it wasn't me. So I really just was blessed to fall into that opportunity by coaching high school, and really, like I said, I just wanted to coach at my alum and give back and try to build something special there, and kind of just trickled into getting to this level.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. You've been like you said, you've been coaching for 9 years. In 2016, you earned an award for the 30 under 30. And I was reading a little bit into that, and it was saying that you had coached like all conference players, all rookies, all academic performers. And one thing about you that coaches loved about you was that you were really good at building relationships. Kind of like how you said your athletic director at Youngstown loved how you built that relationship with his daughter and really invested in the person. Um, what do you want like players or maybe even your current staff or former um, co-workers, I guess that you would call them, like, what do you want them to say about you? You know, like, what's one word like that would describe you?
Oh man, I would hope they would just say good things. I don't know about one word, but maybe that I'm pretty genuine, and I think that's kind of helped me along the way. Like I said, I kind of fell into it, and I've had some very good bosses and mentors. When I got to Radford, our staff, looking back, was elite. Fran Recchia, who's now the associate head at Kent State, and Jamie Givens is the associate head at Belmont, and Mike McGuire, who's still there at Radford. I kind of went in the middle of a rebuild, and they had already had things rolling. So it was really about building relationship with the current players and just getting them to understand the expectation of winning at a higher level, which was already, the ground was laid. I learned so much by being at Radford, and I tell Mike all the time, like, I'm grateful for the opportunity he gave me there, because it really shaped me into the coach I am now. We were in southwestern part of Virginia, so you had like Radford and Virginia Tech right there. Not a whole lot to do, but we had players that were really invested, getting in the gym, putting in extra work, really wanted to learn and grow. And we spent a lot of time together. And I think that early on, I just kind of wanted to be a coach that either I never had or always wanted, and use my experiences
Yep.
through the journey. And really, that's all I continue to do now. I share a lot of those stories. I often think about what I wanted, or how my journey went. I wanted somebody to look at me outside of basketball, because my 4 years weren't great. As far as a player, I was good in high school, but when I got to college, I wasn't the star. But I wanted somebody to care about who I was. And so
Yeah.
even in high school, sometimes kids pull up and it's like their parents told them they got to play or come to practice, and then they in that sport, but that doesn't necessarily mean they don't want to be there. You just got to figure out what makes them happy, how you can
Yeah.
translate the game to their life, and get the best out of it. And I've done the same in college. I try to have conversations outside of basketball, whether it's shoes, whether it's TV shows, music, because we're all human. I mean, we just
Yeah.
have a common goal and love for the game of basketball. So I really try to get to know the person behind the player. I also try to never give up on a kid, just because I knew my struggle, and I know I had people that didn't give up on me. And so I try to provide that, that hope, that light, that those stories when kids are struggling, like, hey, you just got to push through, you got to overcome, like, it'll get better. But you also got to look at yourself, and use, like I said, use those life lessons that I had as a player. I often find myself saying way back when, and when I was young, I'm like, man, you old now. I do. I tell them those stories, or I tell them keep living, and all that good stuff. So really, I kind of just have been blessed to be around the game for so long, that I just use my life lessons or other people's stories and what I've witnessed or experienced. Whether it's teams I've been a part of that have hung banners, which at Radford, we, like you said, we had all conference players. We had put up a banner that hadn't been done in 25 years. So to experience that every single day, I just try to take that to the programs that I'm at. Like here at Loyola, we're trying to rebuild into something special. So just really helping them understand the things that it takes and how to
Yeah.
get to that point.
Yeah. And you're gonna make a difference in these girls' lives for sure. You know, you definitely are. What kind of getting down to the end of this episode. So you're gonna be working with the point guards at Loyola, Maryland. What what are they gonna expect from you this season? Being, on a new team and whatnot.
We've had 8 weeks. We just finished up last week. We were in recruiting in July, but really we're just trying to put in the work, learning, going hard, confidence over comfort, and stepping outside of your comfort zone. But really, it's a team effort, not just the point guards, but we're really just trying to build something special within the whole program.
Facts. Facts. Okay. So, all right, well, we got a few quick hitters to end the show. I really appreciate your time, man. This was a really great, episode, getting to know your story. I remember seeing your name in the paper because every Sunday, this is back when papers
Yeah.
existed. Back when, the back when. And I remember seeing your name, Courtney Davidson, Ursuline. Let me not say Ursuline. Ursuline. So I knew you was a dog, but I just never knew your story. So thank you for coming on here and really,
Yeah, I
you know,
appreciate you
sharing
having me.
it with me and the listeners, man, because it needs to be told. It definitely needs to,
Yeah, I appreciate it.
for sure. So okay, the first thing that comes to mind, go ahead and share it. Did you listen to slow jams or turn up music before games?
Both.
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 Okay. I was a slow jams type
Both.
of. I still am to this day, but I
I
was.
was I was slow jams, but Lil Wayne was hot. Was hot kind of going
Was
into my college. The Carters was
yep.
heavily played, but that was probably, I'd say, a little bit of both. I listened to slow like on the way, but then right before the game was some Lil Wayne.
That's what's up. Shout out Weezy. All right, your top five WNBA players.
um, I'd say Candace Parker, just
Mhm.
because I've been around for her whole career. Enrique is good. That's my go-to player right now.
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
big Enrique Wally fan.
Hmm.
Um, Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird are elite
Yeah.
athletes. Um, and then I'm just gonna say the whole Houston Comets. I ain't gonna. I'm not. I mean, they were it. You grew up. The WNBA got popping, and that's, you swoops, coop, and then you had Tina with the red lipstick. Like, it wasn't
Yep.
my position, but Tina was it. So I have to say
Swear.
Houston Comets, because that was it. Like, those were our pros. Those were our heroes. And obviously the league had the Cleveland Rockers at the time that
Yep.
was up in Cleveland, but for some reason the Houston Comets was like the Bulls to me back then. So that those are probably, like, I'd say, my go-to WNBA players.
Not the whole team, man.
The
That's so
whole team, I can't
funny.
I can't count one of them out. I can't. They was it. They was
That is
it.
so funny because I remember having, we was rocking chains. I mean, they still rock chains now, but we had like those. I remember I had the basketball with the net. Man,
Man, I
I
had a
thought I was
basketball player
bad.
that the ball spun on it. It was, yeah. Everybody had a hoop chain. Everybody.
Everybody had a hoop chain, but I remember having a Houston Comets charm. Man, I'm so sad I ended up selling that. That's when times was hard and I had to sell my joint.
Yeah, that's
But
vintage.
that's what I'm saying. If I knew then what I know now, I would have kept it. But Houston Comets was the team.
That was it.
A coach that you would love to meet that you haven't already, and you could pick their brain. Like, what coach would that be?
Uh, Probably Dawn Staley.
Mm,
Dawn Staley. I think that her journey. When I think I might have been when I was playing, she might have been at Temple at the time, but to just kind of know her background of being from Philly, and her upbringing and what she's doing now as a
mm,
trailblazer for women's basketball, and her story is still continuing. I'd
definitely.
love to pick her mind and see how she stayed true to herself, how she went to South Carolina and built that program up and made it, you know, it's going to go down as one of the best in history at this time. I mean, obviously you have Gino at UConn, but for her to look like us,
Hmm.
to maybe come from some places and experience some things that we experience as players, I would love to one day be able to meet her.
Yeah.
I still get, I'm not gonna lie, I still get starstruck sometimes when I would see people at Final Fours or out on the road recruiting.
Yeah.
I do. Even seeing like Tina, when Cheryl Swoops was coaching and stuff. I think Dawn is probably one that I would love to right now pick her mind, and just kind of be around her.
Yeah. Yeah. She was at Temple because they were in our conference in the
Okay.
A10. So I
Okay.
played against her all 4 years. Her teams, we could never beat Temple, not
Yeah,
until my
they was
senior
good.
year of
They
college.
was
They were so good. She
good.
was an amazing coach. And at the time, I didn't realize it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Until I got older, away from, playing and really realizing that. And you're right. Like as a coach at South Carolina, she's doing amazing things. And now just want to go medal with the
Yeah.
USA team. Just,
And she's
you
a
can't say nothing
point
about
guard
her.
type of coach, so it's like,
Yeah.
she has the IQ,
Yeah.
because you have to when you're leading a team as a point guard, or so I would really like to kind of know how that translates to her former playing.
Yeah.
into coaching, and how you're able to get kids to do things that you once did before as an athlete. So yeah.
Yeah. How do you motivate them for sure? Okay, well, kind of piggybacking off that question, name 5 dinner guests that you would love to sit down at the table with and just again pick their brain.
Oh man, um, I would say Michelle Obama.
Okay,
Um, I would say if I could bring Pat Summit back, I would definitely want to pick her brain.
go.
Um, gosh, Dawn, you can bring Dawn to the table if that's how I'm gonna meet her.
Yeah, let's go, Don.
Bring Dawn, Michael Jordan for sure.
Okay.
Um, gosh, honestly, if we're going talking about like non-sports, what my probably
Yeah.
my grandma. She passed away when I was about 9. They said she was a good athlete. Probably would have been one of my biggest fans and supporters. So I probably would want to bring her to the table just to see, if she was looking down, watching on my career, my journey. So I think that would be the last one to try to sit there and share
That's
stories with.
that's what's up. All right, man. Well, that's a wrap. Courtney, again, I appreciate you coming in and keeping it 1,000 with
Yeah.
me, man. Just talking about hoop. I love hoop too. Like I said, I eat, sleep, drink it, breathe it. I can talk about it all day. So I appreciate you coming on. Just, man, sharing your journey, man. It's greatly, greatly appreciated.
I appreciate you reaching out. It was fun.
Yeah, man, sure. If anyone wants to, check in with Court, see how our team is doing at Loyola, Maryland, there's her IG. Make sure to give her a follow. And you can find this episode on our YouTube channel, Legacy 23 Basketball. If you want to follow us on Instagram, there's our IG at Legacy 23 underscore basketball underscore. We appreciate y'all watching. Episode drops tomorrow. Peace.